Welcome to the Burnout Show. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do an oil change on a 2018 Chevy Camaro 2SS with a 6.2 liter engine. So let's get started. The first thing that you're going to want to do is pop the hood and make sure that the oil fill cap is released. This will allow the oil to drain better once you're at the oil drain pan. So I'm just going to loosen the cap, but once again, you got to pop the hood first. Once you've popped the hood of the car, you then want to come underneath the car and access the oil drain plug. The oil drain plug is going to be located pretty much in the center, but it's actually going to be pointed towards the passenger side of the car. So you're going to want to get a 15mm wrench and essentially crack that oil drain plug loose. Make sure at this point you have some form of oil catch pan, because once you release the oil, you're obviously going to want to catch it in a tray. So if you're on the ground in your driveway or something like that, they sell oil pans that you can buy, or you can use something like a Bunsen burner pan. Remember that this car is about 10 quarts of oil to change the oil. It's between 9 and 10 depending on if you do the filter. So my point is it's a lot of oil that's about to come out. So if you use a pan or a catch tray, make sure that it's big enough to hold 10 quarts of oil, because it is a lot of oil. But like I said, it's going to be facing towards the passenger side, and you're going to want to crack that loose first. It's important to note that at this point, if you just ran the engine for a while, this oil is going to be very hot. The solution to this would be let your car sit with the car off for maybe about 10-15 minutes to let the oil cool down. The reason why I mention this is because you can very easily get burned, because the car gets so hot that when you release the oil and it goes down your arm or even touches your hand, it's very hot. Secondly, if your car has been sitting for a long time and you need to change the oil, then it's actually good to run it for about 10 to 15 seconds and then turn the car off. That will allow the oil to drain better. Just be careful of that. This car has been sitting for about 15 minutes, so we should be good to go and pull the plug completely off. One thing that's helpful to know is when the oil is very black like this, that means that it's definitely ready to be changed. So when you put in the new oil, you'll notice it's almost a see-through brown color. When you see black oil like this, that means it's definitely been well used and it's the right time to change the oil. After you have the oil drain plug out, you can continue to let the oil drain and just drip as much as possible. Now is actually a good time to loosen the oil filter. So the oil filter will be right underneath as well, just on the driver's side of the engine. And most of the time you can get this with just 2 hands on the filter. So I'm gonna try to grab it with my hands. If not, you can use an oil filter wrench, and that will essentially help you loosen the filter. But like I said, most of them you can normally get with just your hands. And this oil filter will also have oil inside of it. Because it's sitting like a cup, it has oil in it. So you're gonna have to kind of tilt it into the pan really quick, because when you take it off, it's gonna be full. Couple things to note when you're taking off these two things is there's a rubber seal on the filter. You're gonna wanna make sure that that little rubber ring comes off with the old filter. Sometimes it actually does get stuck onto the block of the car, but you're gonna wanna make sure it comes off, because the new filter comes with one of these on it. So make sure that comes off as well. And secondly, on the oil drain plug, there's actually a little rubber O-ring as well. This helps seal the oil pan. So make sure that it comes off with the bolts and you don't lose it. It's actually gonna go back on and help seal the oil pan again. You're gonna wanna keep that, make sure you don't lose it, and put it back on with the bolt. So at this point, you're actually good to put on the new oil filter. I like to do a couple things before putting on the filter. Right on the bottom of the filter itself, I like to write the current date as well as the current mileage of the car. This allows the owner of the car or the next mechanic to check when the oil filter was last changed. Some people don't actually change the filter every single oil change. It takes 2 seconds and it's a good reference point. Another thing I like to do when I'm putting on the new filter is actually take a little bit of oil on my finger just like that and rub it right around this new little rubber ring here on the new filter. This actually allows the filter to be tightened down more smoothly. Just a little bit of oil, not too much there. That actually allows it to turn on a little nicer. When you're tightening down the oil filter, it's actually important that you don't over tighten it, because you don't want to strip the threads on that. So what I advise is actually tightening it down with one hand, tighten it down the best you can, and then leave it like that. So that's good to go. Make sure you don't over tighten that. Now it's time to put in the oil drain plug. Once again, make sure the rubber is on that as well. At this point, you don't want to over tighten this either. So once you put this back in, you're gonna want to use your 15mm wrench, and I would just get it tight with one wrench. So I'm gonna put it in now. Once you've tightened that down, once again, with one wrench, make sure it's tight, but don't strip it, because that is something that you definitely don't want to strip, or you're just gonna be leaking oil all the time. So once that's tight and the oil filter is good to go, you can now go to the top of the car and add in the new oil. Once you're all set with underneath the engine, now it's time to add in new oil. Now this engine, when you change the oil filter, will actually need 10 quarts of oil. What I recommend is going just below that and then checking it first, and then maybe topping it off at the end. You obviously don't want to overfill the oil, and you can check it right on the dipstick. The oil we're using is 5-weight 30, so 5W30 oil, full synthetic. One thing that's important to note is if you're running this in cold temperatures, they actually recommend to use 0-weight oil. However, if you're running it in warm weather, you should use the 5-weight 30 that they suggest. And like I said, it's about 10 quarts. So you're gonna add it right into the oil filler cap here. It's actually at an angle, so just make sure it doesn't spill. But make sure you have a funnel, and then you can just pour it right in from there. Once you've poured in approximately 10 quarts of oil, you should be good to go. I recommend after you tighten the oil filler cap, which we previously took out first, that you actually fire up the engine, run it for about 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds, turn the engine off, and then come out and check the dipstick to make sure that the reading of the oil is within the correct measurements on the oil dipstick, that is. So other than that, you can add a little bit more if you need a little bit more at that point, but you should be good to go. Once again, this was a 2018 Chevy Camaro 2SS. And you'll see this car here on the Burnout show. If you haven't checked out our other videos, we have videos like how to do a burnout or how to drive a manual car. That involves other cars like this that are muscle cars or sports cars or something of that nature. So be sure to check out the channel. We have tons of great content that has previously been released, but that's gonna be all for this video. Thank you for tuning in. Definitely like and subscribe if this video helped you out, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.